Okay, thank you. This is Tim Crawford with the PA, and thanks for everyone following along and joining the meeting. Congratulations for getting at least the phone connection, and hopefully you're in the WebEx. This is our 4th session. We're trying to do these as often as we can fit them in before we launch into the new system. Again, if folks didn't hear that before, this is going to be very, very similar, if not identical, to what Ariel has done before. Jay Geiger, you've heard, is controlling the works here, and probably have seen that name for years now. Ariel Devani is doing the lead and has done a whole host of training, so you'll get a nice, crisp overview of all the functionality. She's going to move fairly quickly to cover it all, and as Jay mentioned, if there is time available, we'll open up the mics to take any questions. The current system that everybody's working in, we totally realize there's a good deal of performance. We've kind of gotten to a maxed out state, so we're very excited about switching over. That's one of the major benefits that we're going to see in this new system. It's a whole new environment, scalability, and reconfigurations of the content area. So reports and all will be done outside the kind of the workflow aspect, and that's where we've seen a good deal of performance hits right now. We may be having to make some changes to the legacy system to prevent some of the latency or performance issues that we're seeing now, and we'll work through your point of contacts there to let you know if things like certain reports are going to be just removed, so we can keep people working without that kind of interruption that we're seeing, certainly on Monday mornings. So this has got a range of sort of new functionality that Ariel is going to point out here. This is primarily to give you a sense of look and feel for what it'll look like when we do transition over. The target date for that now is the latter part of May, but we'll refine that schedule and communicate that out through the agency point of contacts. But towards the end of this week, we'll have a much better idea if we've got a target date that we can start to share. But for people's working time frame, I think Monday the 21st is the anticipated go-live date. That is certainly our target. Again, we'll make a recording of this, so we know we can't reach all 3,200 users with this kind of format, but a lot of the activities are very similar to what you're accustomed to doing, but where they are kind of new enhancements that'll be pointed out, but there certainly is a little different look and feel with the user interface area that we think is a lot more crisp now. So let me turn it over to Ariel to walk through the functions, and then we'll watch for any questions towards the end. Thank you all.
Thank you, Tim. So as Tim said, what I'm going to do is basically just a walkthrough demo of everything in the system. We're going to start here on the public user new homepage, and then we're going to go into the agency side and go through the processing of a request and just point out the things that are new and or slightly different and things that have changed, and then we'll go through the administration tab as well as searching and reporting. So like I said, the first place we want to start is right here on the home page. This is the new home page for FOIAonline. What we tried to do when we designed this was make it more user-friendly than our previous home page. So up at the top in this gray box, we have 3 items, which is search request, create request, and generate report. This gives users the ability to start processing as soon as they come to FOIAonline. So they can search through requests using this search bar, bring their keywords or their tracking number. They can immediately go to creating a request by pressing this begin button, and then they can also generate reports right from the home page. So this report function is the annual report metrics that are available to the public users, so all those individual tables that are in your year-end annual report. Scrolling down, the FOIAonline Essentials section is basically just 3 icons that's going to take users to certain pages to get started. So the first 2, search and report, These are basically if the user's not sure what they're needing to search on or what report is available to them, clicking one of these icons is just going to take them to the landing page where they can get a little more information about that function and then get an idea of maybe what they're looking for. And then the last one, access, is going to take the user to the create account page, and so they can learn about what a registered user account offers them in addition to the public guest functionality, and hopefully create an account so they can keep track of their own case files within the system. Tools to help your productivity is basically an informational section. So on the left-hand side, we have these 5 categories about items that the public might want to learn more about. And then on the right-hand side, we've got some screenshots of the system with a little bit of information. So just clicking on any one of those is going to change that screenshot and give them some information about that category. And then the last section on the home page is the participating agency section. We wanted to make sure we highlighted which agencies are part of FOIAonline and to try to reduce the number of incorrectly submitted requests or people submitting requests for other agencies. So all of you are on the home page. If you're new to FOIAonline, we've got these little tags here that let people know, as well as your joined date. And then each one of the agency names is actually a link. And if you hover over, you can see as click here to view recent requests for this agency. And that basically is going to perform a search that's going to show the users all of the recent requests that have been submitted to your agency. And we're defining recent requests as those within the current fiscal year. Excuse me, sorry. So and they can get a little idea of what other people are submitting. If they're not sure if their information would already be available, they can just see that recent request search and try to get an idea. So scrolling back up to the top, I'm going to go ahead and log in now as an agency user and walk through all of that functionality that you guys are used to seeing. So pressing the login link at the top right of the screen, it's going to take me to a login page. If you're PIV or CAC user, you're going to log in as you've always done with your PIV card and your PIN. If you're a username password user, same thing. You're going to type in your username and password and get into the system. So once we log into the system, we're going to get taken directly to the My Cases dashboard. If you're all familiar with FOIAonline, the legacy version, you'll remember that we had a landing page that was basically like a welcome to FOIAonline and gave you a little bit of information. We've removed that page. One of the things that we wanted to try to do within the system in the rebuild was remove a lot of unnecessary pages as well as make the system more efficient. So we have tried to remove a lot of those unnecessary pages as well as having to scroll or click or paginate, all those types of things that was kind of unnecessary. We've tried to streamline all of that to make sure you're getting where you want to go as quickly as possible and not having to do all that unnecessary clicking and actions. So like I said, the My Cases dashboard is now the landing page. The general layout should feel the same to you. Up at the top, we've got your quick search ability as well as your 5 tabs. So the Home, Search, Reports, Administration, and now the My Account tab. So the My Account tab should be the same as it was previously. If you click into this drop-down for your user and press the My Account tab, it's just going to be where your user's information is housed as well as your email preferences. One of the things that we did change in the new system was try to give you more categories for your email preferences, so now you can really tailor the notifications that you're receiving. So in Legacy, we only had 2 categories, and turning them on and off was going to stop or start those notifications for a whole bunch of different things. Now we've broken them out into various categories, so hopefully you can get the notifications you want and turn the ones off that you don't. And then the last part of My Account tab is the ability, excuse me, to change your password as needed. So at any point in the system, you can click either the home link or the FOIAonline icon to take you back to the home page, which is going to be that My Cases dashboard. We still have our left side action menu. So in the home page, they're going to have your dashboards as well as your ability to create new case files. The function of the left side menu is still the same. It's going to be that list of actions that's available on every page, and it will change as you get to different pages. Some of the names of the actions as well as the ordering of the actions have changed, so I'll point a couple of those things out as we go through the system. So we also still have your 3 dashboards, the My Cases dashboard being everything open and assigned to your user, the Unassigned Cases dashboard being all of the cases that have come into the agency and are sitting at an office but not yet assigned out to an individual, and the Assigned Cases dashboard being all the cases assigned to an individual user. I'm going to go to the Unassigned Cases dashboard just to point out a couple of items that are new. So we still have the ability to sort on all of the different columns, but what you may notice is that all those filters we had up at the top to try to allow you to filter information are no longer available. What we've replaced them with is this filter search bar on the right-hand side. And this is just going to text search throughout the data table below. For example, if I want to see all of the items that are in the simple track, I can just type in simple, and it will filter all of those things down. And then if I want to see another category, such as if I want to see all the simple appeals, I can go ahead and start typing appeal, and then it will start filtering those things down. So just go ahead and type whatever you're searching for or whatever you're trying to filter on right into that search bar, and it will filter. This filter search is not available only on the dashboards. It's actually available through most data tables in the system. So your records tables, your files, anything like that, you should be able to have that filter and search on all of those data tables. I'm going to click over to the Assigned Cases dashboard. And what I wanted to point out is one other change we've made on both on all of the dashboards is that there's this new icon on the left-hand side, and if you hover over, it tells you additional statuses exist. So if you click the detail icon to expand that additional information, it'll tell you what that additional status is. So in this case, it's backlogged. You'll still have statuses such as the clock has been stopped or new correspondence.
I don't know what I got home with the sleep.
So once again, if you all are just joining, please mute your lines. If you're not muted, I think we may have a couple of people who didn't get muted in the beginning. So thank you, everyone. Please mute your lines. So go ahead. I'm going to click into a request. Going back to that Unassigned Cases dashboard, I'm going to click into a request so we can see an example of the new request details page. So on the request details page, if you're familiar with FOIAonline, it should feel very familiar to you. The layout of everything, not much has changed with the layout. We still have our top menu with the available options that you had previously. One thing that has changed is the case file option. It's no longer something you click and get taken to the records tab. The case file is now a drop-down, so you can just immediately go to the tab that you're actually wanting to view. So once again, trying to reduce the amount of unnecessary clicking and paginating that you are required to do. So under the case file, just go to the option that you are directly wanting. One of the things that you all may have noticed is that there is no longer a phase diagram. We removed that on the agency side only. It is still available to guest and register users of the public, but we wanted to save that space and reduce the amount of scrolling you had to do on this page. That phase information is still available up here in the right-hand side, so you can see that phase was evaluation as well as the internal only status, the due date, and the clock date still in that same place as well. So the first section on every page is still going to be that requester information section, so that section showing you the information available about the requester as well as some of the dates and assignment information. One of the things we did do, small change, was just add the receive date into this section so you no longer had to go to a different page to see the receive date. We know that's important information. So it's right up front available for you. On the left-hand side, we still have our action menu, as I said previously, although we do have a few new categories within this new layout. The first one is the case file details section. It's got the request details, which is just going to take you back to the landing page for this case file, the submission details tab when you click on it, as well as the clock details. This is a brand new piece of functionality within FOIAonline. I'll go over it in just a minute. Below that is the actions category. This is going to have all your actions available for your request that you had previously. So make assignment, extend the due date, upload records, all of those should feel familiar to you. Below that is the create new. So this is creating new items off of the request, so your tasks and your correspondence, as well as any additional case files such as appeals, referrals, and consultations. And then the last category is the other category, which is basically just a few miscellaneous items. So if you need to generate an invoice or print your case file, as well as if you need to transfer or delete this request. So scrolling back up, I'm going to go ahead and go to that clock details action so we can show you that. What some of you may have noticed while I was going through the action menu is there's no longer a stop the clock function. What we did is we took all of the clock-related items and put them into this clock details page, which is basically going to give you a running list of all the times that the clock is started and stopped. So previously you had stop the clock. After the request was closed, that stop the clock action was no longer available, so you could never see what had happened with the clock throughout the request. We recognize that as an issue, so now you're able to see all of the clock-related items as well as stop the clock on this page. So this clock details section is going to keep track of all of those starts and stops, so you can see this is the clock initial start from when the case was perfected, and then if I wanted to stop the clock, I can do it down below. This table does also include the clock stoppages that happen when a case is closed as well as reopened. So I know some of you were interested in seeing the date that a case is reopened to keep track of stuff like that, and that was not previously available, so that is now available. And then the last thing that we've changed about clock stoppages is you do have the ability to backdate clock stoppages, both the start date of when the clock should be stopped as well as the end date. So we know that there have been a lot of help desk-related tickets with clock stoppages that were either not stopped at the correct time or the clock wasn't restarted when it was supposed to be. You had to contact the help desk to get that taken care of. Now you're able to just set those dates correctly based on when your clock was stopped and started. So scrolling back up, I'm going to go ahead and go out to the home page so we can actually go through submitting a new request. So clicking that FOIAonline icon to take me back to the My Cases dashboard. On the left-hand side, I still have my options for creating new case files. Remember, this is when you receive a case file in some format outside of FOIAonline, so either by phone or email or whatever may have you. You're going to go ahead and put that case into the system so you can track it. I'm going to go ahead and submit a new request. So clicking on that new request action is going to take me to the new request page. For the most part, this page hasn't changed, but there are a couple of new things that I'm going to point out. The first one being this sub-agency field. If you click on that, what you're going to notice is that it's a hybrid drop-down type ahead. So all of the options that are available to the user are all in here as part of the drop-down, but it's also a type ahead. So if you go ahead and just start typing what you're looking for, it'll narrow that list down so you can click on exactly what you want. So if you are one of those agencies that has a whole host of sub-agencies in each one of these drop-downs, such as the Navy, your users can narrow that list and get directly where they want to be. These type aheads, slightly different format, will be shown on other pages, and I'll point those out to you. But there are type aheads throughout most of the system. Scrolling down, you still have the ability to enter alternate request types. So if your agency is accepting those other request types in FOIAonline, that's still available to you. Requester's contact information section hasn't changed, nor has the processing fees or the description of the request. And then you still have the ability to enter that expedited processing and fee waiver upfront. Remember, if you select yes from this dropdown, you enter the requester's justification as well as the submitted date, and then these two items will be created as tasks within the system. That whole process is still the same, and in this case, I'm not going to do that for this demo. If your agency is accepting additional information and has custom fields, they will display here. I will go through the custom fields later on as some of that functionality is brand new, but just if you're all wondering what this section is, that's just your additional custom fields if they are available to your agency. Some of the agencies don't have custom fields. And then the last section, the attached supporting file section. One of the things we did within the system is everywhere a file can be uploaded, your supporting files, your records, your restricted materials are now all drag and drop uploaders. So you still have the ability to click on the Select Files button, get a window into your hard drive, and go ahead and enter or upload your files like that. But if you have files on your desktop or you have your window into your hard drive already open and you want to go ahead and just pull those right in, drag and drop right there. So we're just trying to make it easier and quicker for you all to get the information into the system that you want to get. So for the sake of the demo, once again, I'm not going to upload all of these files. So scrolling down to the bottom, all I did was remove all of those files. I'm going to go ahead and press the preview button, which is going to give me that read-only view of the request, and then press submit to submit that request. Clicking into that tracking number, I'm back on the request details page of our new request. So already having pointed out the requester information section, I'm going to scroll down. The request handling section has all of the fields that you're used to seeing. None of those have changed. The only addition is the request type field. So once again, if you're accepting alternate request types, you can change that request type right here. If you're not, you don't have to worry about that field at all. I'm going to go ahead and perfect our request because I'm going to need some of those actions in the left side menu that are normally restricted on an unperfected request. The description section has not changed. You still have the ability to modify as well as tag it with a short description and make that description available to the public. Once again, skipping over that additional information section. And then the last two sections are still the ability to upload those supporting files. So pressing the Save button so I can save and perfect my request. Now that I'm on a perfected request, I can start performing all of those actions that I'd like to be doing to process this request. One of the first things that I do want to do is make an assignment on this request. So in the left side menu, under Actions, Make Assignment Action is going to take me to that Make Assignment page. None of the options have changed on this page. The only thing that we wanted to do is make it easier for you all to find the organizations or individuals you're looking for. So once again, just like that sub-agency drop-down on the new request page, I've got type aheads where I just start typing in what I'm looking for, and it'll bring it up for me. So in the case of an agency, you can use either the agency's name or the acronym. So if I wanted to find headquarters, I can start typing headquarters, the name itself, or just type in HQ, and it'll pull that back for me. And then I can go ahead and click on it. So trying to, once again, get rid of that pop-up and searching and selecting and closing and all of that unnecessary stuff, just go ahead and type the exact thing you want right into the search bar. If it's an individual, go ahead and just type their name. Our user is called the EPA Help Desk user, so typing in help will pull that back, and then go ahead and select. If you do have a user that has multiple actual agencies, this drop-down is going to appear for you, where you can just select which agency that you want to assign it to in addition to that user itself. And then the last option, you still have the Assign to Me button down here if you know this request should just go directly to you. One of the other things that I want to point out on this page is, once again, trying to save you all the space in the scrolling. You'll notice that the Requester Information section, when I came to this page, was default collapsed. It is like that on all pages except for the Submission Details tab. So the information is still available to you in case you wanted to look at that information and see the requester's information, but we collapsed it on all of the tabs except for the Submission Details tab, so it's not in there and you're not having to scroll to get to the actual action that you came here to perform. So all the panels within the system do have these expand and collapse icons on the right-hand side, so you can expand and collapse any panel at any time if you're trying to look at something specific or you're trying to reduce the amount of scrolling that you're having to do. So in this case, I'm going to press the Assign to Me button and just go ahead and assign this to my user. In the confirmation message, you'll see that I have a Click Here button. If I click this button, it's going to keep me on the request. If I don't click this button, it's just going to take me back to my My Cases or Unassigned Cases dashboard based on what action I'm performing. So at any point in time, if you want to stay on your request, just look for the Click Here button in the confirmation message. If not, it'll just take you back to a dashboard. So in this case, I do want to keep working on my request, so taking me back to that request details page. After assigning this to myself, one of the things I may want to do is create new correspondence. So going over to that left-hand menu once again, under the Create New action is going to be the correspondence item. So clicking on that, we still have the ability to create those two types of correspondence, both the correspondence to requester as well as the other type of correspondence. In this case, the only thing that has changed is correspondence to requester. So clicking on that, we're going to get our to and from email fields as well as these new CC and BCC fields. So in sending correspondence, you may need to CC another user within the system or your administrators or someone who reviews things or whoever it may be. You now have the ability to CC and BCC those individuals. You can select users that are in the system and have accounts. Go ahead and just start typing their name. It's going to filter down and pull up the individual for you. If you start typing in an email that is not within the system, the search is going to say no results. However, you can just continue to type in their full email and press enter, and you can also type in that user. So once again, you search for users within the system as well as enter users outside of the system. So if they don't have a FOIAonline account, you can still CC them on these correspondences that are being created. You still have the ability to select a letter template. So doing that is going to create that PDF letter as well as give me the ability to edit both those email bodies and letter previews. And then you can upload any kind of attachments that you'd like to the letter. So I am going to create this just so it can take me over to that correspondence tab. And the correspondence to requester and the correspondence tab is still broken up into those two separate sections. So the correspondence to requester as well as the other correspondence, and the items within the section are still the same as well. So any correspondence you generate manually as well as any system-generated correspondence. So moving right along, next thing we're going to cover is uploading responsive records. So in the left-hand side menu, under the Actions category, go ahead and click the Upload Responsive Records action. I still have the ability to select real files off of my hard drive, as well as creating a placeholder record. Remember that placeholder record being something that's not reproducible in electronic format. So something such as a CD or a DVD that's going to be sent to the requester. And then the one thing that we wanted to make sure we got into This new system was the ability to mass apply exemptions. So we know that you all often have a whole list of records that all need to get exemptions, and applying those one by one previously was very tedious. So now, in addition to your release type and keywords that were previously available, you can also mass apply exemptions to all of your records at the same time. And this does include both Exemption 3 and Exemption 5 statutes and subtypes if you are selecting those. So in this case, I'm not going to select either of those. I'm going to upload all of these as UU. Your 5 available release types are all still the same. So your 2 unreleasable options at the top being the ones that are unreleasable to the general public and will never be released. And then your next 2 options being the releasable to the general public, meaning anyone who can come into FOIAonline can see those records. And then the last release type, your release to requester only, meaning only available to the requester themselves. And if they're coming through FOIAonline, this is going to be only your registered requesters. So pressing the Save button, you all may have noticed the little modal that popped up. That's going to give you a progress bar of your file upload. That is available on all of your file uploads, and it's not just the records. So your restricted materials, your supporting files, and then that progress bar we'll see later is also on the reports. So just trying to give you a little indication of how long it's going to be for your items to upload, which hopefully with the performance in the new system, it won't be very long, as we just saw. So in the case responsive records table, you have all of the same information that you had previously. If you select one of those releasable types, it's still going to be highlighted and moved to the top of your list. And then if there is any editing to be done, you can still go ahead, press that action item, that edit icon, to get to the Edit Responsive Records page. None of the items on this page have changed. It's all still the same, but for the demo, I'm going to go ahead and add one of those exemptions. So saving that, I now have that record released to requester only with the exemption 1. This is going to take us right into our next topic, which is the interim release. So before I start the interim release, I want to say that for the sake of time in the demo, I'm not going to show all of the steps related to all of the actions that we would normally perform. And this is the case of the interim release. So I'm going to go to the interim release page and show you the changes we've made there, but I'm not going to do the whole interim release process. So we're not going to create the task and close out the task and all of that. So some of the items I walk through, I'm not going to do the whole thing. So the interim release is one of those. So in the left side menu, under the Actions category, select the interim release action. This is going to take me to the interim release page. Up at the top, we still have the invoice comments and the letter template, but 2 things that we have changed on the page. The first one I'm going to point out is the releasable records section. So previously, you'd get a list of all of the records in the system, and there was no indication of which records you're actually releasing in the interim release. So we know that that was something that was difficult for you all, especially if you're one of those agencies that may perform multiple interim releases on the same request. So what we have done is filtered this table based on only the items that are going to be released in this interim release. So if you remember, on our Records tab, we had 3 total records, 2 of them being indicated as unreleasable. So those 2 have been removed. So this table only shows items that are releasable, and it only shows items that have not previously been released. So if it was already released in an interim release, it's not going to show up here as being released. So once again, just raising the visibility of the items actually being included in this interim release. And that goes for this exemptions used field up at the top. So this is a summary of the exemptions being used on the case file. In this case, whenever it's an interim release, it's only going to summarize the exemptions being used on this subset of records. So whatever records are being released, that exemptions used is going to reflect that, not the entire case file. So like I said, I'm not going to go through that whole interim release process. The only thing you need to know is that process has stayed exactly the same. Pressing the Save button is going to generate my interim release notice. I'm going to be able to close out that notice and send the records to the user. So moving on over to some of the other items that are available, one of the things I'm going to go through really quickly is just show you the new estimate cost page. So the only thing we've changed on this function is just the layout. So previously, it was in one long line, and you had to scroll through and try to see all of it, and if you wanted to see what you put in the top, you had to scroll back up after going to the bottom. It was just a little bit of a pain. So nice new layout. You can see everything on the same page. All of it works the same way. All of your costs are pulled directly from your agency's administration. Entering any of those fields, pressing the total button is still going to total up those fields with those discounts already applied, and then pressing the Save button will create your estimate cost notice. You'll be able to adjudicate that close that task and send that estimate to the requester. None of that has changed, just the layout, making it easier to view. In the left-hand menu, going to the Create New Task action. I'm not actually going to create a task, but the only thing that I wanted to show you on this page is that once again we have those new type ahead fields. So just go ahead and start typing the agency that you'd like, and they'll be listed in the field. The one thing that's different from the assignment page, so the Make Assignment page, is that we all know we can create multiple tasks at the same time. So unlike Make Assignment, under Task Assignment, if you'd like to create additional tasks, just continue to type right into that field and select those, and it'll keep adding those tags so you know that you're going to create multiple tasks to these organizations as well as these users. And then the bottom information is all still the same. So moving now from our left-hand menu to our top nav, we're going to go through each one of these tabs, the first one being the Admin Cost tab. So on the Admin Cost tab, we've made a couple of changes. The first one being that the new entry section is always available. You no longer have to press a button to expand out a section. It's just there. You can immediately start typing into it. Another change we made is the fee category is now on the page. I didn't set one on this case, but you'll be able to see media, commercial, other right here on the page so you know why discounts are being taken out of your costs. So that's available to you right there. The username field still populates with your user as well as the billing category based on that user. So this user being rate 1, it shows you the actual rate as well, which was not previously available. You can still search for other users within the system. Selecting one of those, it's going to show their billing rate, and you can still do a non-system user, meaning someone not within FOIAonline, by entering their name and loaded rate and billing rate. So in this case, I'm just going to create for an agency user. Selecting a charge date, as well as entering the hours related to that. I can still designate charges as non-billable. Go ahead and save. It's going to be added to the table, and then I'm going to add one more charge. Indicate that one as billable. So a couple of things that I'll point out now is you can see that there is an icon here on the left-hand side. This icon is indicating that this charge is the one that has exceeded the requester's fee limit. So if the requester has a fee limit of $100 and you go over that, you want to know, so you can contact that requester and let them know that their fee limit is not enough. Do they want to increase their fee limit? We just want to make sure that that is available, that information is available to you. So these icons will display on the first charge that exceeds the fee limit, as well as any charges after that that you add. So the first one being non-billable, obviously is not going to exceed the fee limit, which is why there is no icon there. What we did change in this table also is the fact that you now have a detail column, which you did not have previously, and expanding out that detail is just going to show you that charge description. So in Legacy FOIAonline, after you entered that charge description, you could never see it again in the table. You had to actually go to the edit, which would display it back down here in this section. We just wanted to give you that information right in the table, so that's also available to you. Scrolling up, I'm going to go ahead and skip the Assigned Tasks tab for now since we don't have any tasks, but we will generate one when we go through the closeout process, so we'll look at it at that time. Going over to the Comments tab, the Comments tab header still indicates how many comments are on the request. And then one of the things that we did change was taking that Create Comment action out of the left side menu and just giving you the ability to create new comments right here on the tab. So creating a new comment, editing them, deleting them, all can be done right here on the tab itself. So typing in there, pressing the Save button, and then that comment is available to you. The last tab up here is the Review tab. Remember, the Review tab is used to set up a review chain that's going to be utilized once you perform an interim release or a closeout. The individuals listed in this tab getting review tasks so they can review all the information on the case file before approving or rejecting that task. So once again, removing that pop-up and searching and all that you had to do, just having a type ahead, go ahead and start typing your user, and then they will be immediately added to the table. The review order indicating which users are going to get their review task first. So the lower the number, the order that they get their review task, 1 being the first reviewer, 2 being the next, like that. To change the review order, we've removed all of the icons and the buttons and the clicking. You can just go ahead and take an entry and drag it and drop it where you would like. So that's just available to you to just get what you want done, set up that review chain, and then save the page. In this case, I'm not going to add any of these reviewers for the demo. So the last thing that I'm going to show you in terms of case file processing is going to be the closeout process. So we still have restrictions on the closeout process. There's still a few things that you need to check before you can go through that process. Is your case assigned to an individual user? Have you added your admin costs and your review chain, and are all of your tasks closed out? So we just went through admin costs and the review chain. We assigned this to our own user in the beginning of the demo, and then we don't have any tasks at the moment. So in the left-hand side, going ahead and going to that Begin Closeout Process action, we're going to get taken to the Final Closeout Information section. Disposition information is still the same. You have your 3 standard dispositions, full grant, partial grant, and full denial, as well as your additional dispositions, and then the other disposition drop-down will appear. If you select other, we have the ability to select our GLOMAR here. Remember, these dispositions are controlled by your agency in the Administration tab, which we'll cover in a little bit. In this case, I'm just going to select partial grant, partial denial. Exemptions used is going to summarize all the exemptions you've used on this request, as well as still the ability to enter invoice comments in the letter template, and then a summary of all the records we have on this request. So unlike the interim release where we're just showing the information that is going to be released, this is a summary of everything because we're going to close out this request. Pressing the Save button, I'm going to get that final closeout warning. Remember, this is a final process. Once you select yes, your action menu is going to be restricted on what's available to you, and the case file is pretty much locked for processing. The only way to get it out of being locked is to reject a review task. In this case, we don't have any, so always make sure you're ready to close out. Selecting yes, it's going to go ahead, give me some confirmation messages about everything that's happening, and then redirect me to the Submission Details tab. On the Submission Details tab, once you have started the closeout process, you're going to get the closure information section. This is available to you throughout the closeout process and once the case is closed, and it's just a summary of that information. So you no longer have to enter a request and go to a different page to try to find some of this information. Statutes and subtypes were never available, all that. So we've just summarized that right here in this section so you can see everything related to the closure of this request in one place. Going to the Assigned Task tab, we can see that our final disposition notice has been created. All the information on this tab is the same as it was previously. One of the things that did change is now in the Assigned Task tab header, we have a number similar to the Comments tab. What this number is indicating is the number of open tasks on the request. So if you're coming in here trying to close out this case and you see that there's an open task on it, you immediately know that you need to close that task out before you can close the request. So just a quick little summary of whether or not you have open tasks on the case and how many you have. Clicking the pending link is going to take me to our task. So this is our first look at a task. You'll all remember from FOIAonline Legacy, or if you're a new user, you can see that the task details page is very similar to our request details page. You can always know which type of case file or task you're on by the top title. So in this case, it says task details. It may say appeal details, referral details, anything like that. And remember that tasks do share the same tracking number as their parent case file. So in this case, our tracking number is going to be the same as our parent request. The information available on a task in all of the tabs is all the information on the request in a read-only format. So if I scroll down, all those fields that were editable on the request are just in a read-only format. And then you have the task details section, which is specific to the task itself. So the type of task, as well as when it was submitted and when it's due, as well as the assignment information for the task. So in that left side menu, under the Actions category, the Closeout Task action is going to take me to the closeout page for this request. Depending on your role, on the final disposition notice, you'll have two options for closing out a task, the first one being the offline closure. So this is available when you want to close this task without sending a notification to the requester and the ability to backdate the closure. So we want to always make sure our close date is correct so we can keep track of those metrics for our year-end annual report. And if you need to backdate this closure for any reason, that's available to you. So one of the things I want to point out here is that you may notice that our calendar is restricted to today's date. This is true of calendars throughout the entire system, that the validation that was done previously on the screen is now done in the calendar itself. So what that means is for this close date, we cannot close it before our submitted date, and since our submitted date is today's date, that's why that calendar is restricted. So it will not let you select anything before the submitted date, and it will not let you select anything in the future based on the date picker that you have available to you. So that's done right in the calendar, just trying to show you this is the date that these is the date range that you're allowed to select. If you do select a date, all that email information at the bottom is still going to go away. You can press the close without sending button. If you do want to send an email to the requester, just clearing that date out will bring it back. The information in the closeout task section is just that email information. Remember, you can edit that to be whatever email description and email body you'd like to send to the requester. Still have the ability to upload any additional supporting files. You will have to indicate whether or not you want to attach the latest invoice. What this does, if you select yes, is going to make this invoice required for payment. And in the bottom section is where you can attach your records and past correspondence. Pressing the send button, I'm going to be prompted to enter my password. In the case of PIV and CAC users, you all will skip this process because you're already authenticated. So in this case, now my task has been closed, and I'm returned to my Cases dashboard with my request now closed. So the next things we're going to go through are the search functions. So up at the top, you still have the quick search bar. If you're not sure, you want to get some more information, you can actually go to the quick search or advanced search page. The first one I'm going to go through is the quick search. So clicking on that is going to take me to the quick search page, which gives me a little information at the top about how the searching works. And then I have this quick search bar where I can type in the different items available. The search is still indexed. So if you all remember from FOIAonline, there was search indexing. That is still happening. However, the delay is no longer 2 hours. The delay is more like a few minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and try to search for my request. And you can see that my case, as well as all those records, is already available to me. So once again, that indexing is happening in a much shorter time period. The search should be much more useful to you all if you're trying to just find information that you've just entered. All of the searching and reporting happens on the same page that you type in the criteria, so you'll no longer have one page to type in your search criteria or report criteria and then be taken to another page and having to flip back and forth to see those things. You can see here our criteria is right here at the top and our search results just displayed down here at the bottom. Within the table, we still have the ability to filter on those search results, trying to find any of the information. So in this case, if I'm looking for the request, just go ahead, start typing requests, and it'll filter out those records. And then we also have filters on the left-hand side. So if I'm trying to filter down by agency or the type, as well as these additional filters such as exemptions used, final disposition, all of those filters, I can just select the one that I'm looking for and filter down. If I select multiple tags, they're going to go across the screen here, and then I can select the little X icon to remove them, or if I have multiple, I can use this clear filters button, which will remove all the tags that I have. So the next thing that I want to show you is the advanced search. This is something new in FOIAonline, but what this really is replicating the old custom report. So the custom report, all on that one page, very difficult to see everything that you're trying to do, scrolling through, the layout was not the best. So what we've done is we've built that custom report feature into this new advanced search. And how it works is on the left-hand side, you have a drop-down. All of those options that are available to you in the custom report are all available here, as well as some additional items. The legacy tracking number, so if your case was migrated from another system and it has an old tracking number, that's now available. Confirmation numbers via pay.gov and the additional confirmation number are now available. I haven't covered those, but I will in just a minute when we go back to our request. So those are available, as well as if your agency has any custom fields, those will be available down here at the bottom of the drop-down if you make them available for search. And once again, I will go over custom fields in just a little bit. So there are a few different types. If you select something such as the tracking number, requester's name, requester organization, you're going to get a corresponding search for field. In this case, it's going to be free text, so we just start typing in that tracking number. That's true of all of those top fields. The next set of fields are date fields. So if you select a date, you're going to get date ranges that you can enter. Assigned to individual and assigned to organization are going to be those type ahead fields. So if we just start typing in the user, we should be able to find that. And then the last type of fields are drop-downs that have predetermined lists of items. So something such as a status, just go ahead. I see all of my available options, and I can select the various statuses that I want to search for. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and search for our tracking number, and here we get our request. So clicking in to that request, Now we're going to go through what I was just talking about, that financing tab, to just show you the few changes we made there. So under the case file, going to the financing tab, all the information at the top is still the same. You still have your fee estimates if you sent any to the user, your invoices listed here with the ability to mark them as sent, aka required or not, your payments table, and then the ability to add a new payment down at the bottom. So the new items that we have are the pay.gov as well as the additional confirmation number. So the additional confirmation number is anything that you'd like to tag this payment with. If you, for instance, track payments in an additional system outside of FOIAonline or some other tracking method, you have a confirmation number for this payment, you can add that right to this payment and save, and it'll display in that table for you. If you are accepting pay.gov payments in the system, that confirmation number is going to come directly from pay.gov. So once a requester makes that payment, that information is sent from pay.gov back to FOIAonline, and it's now going to include the confirmation number for that payment. So that's the additional items that we've added for financing and keeping track of all of that information that's related to those payments being made. So going back up to the top, now what we would like to go through is our report section. That top header gives you the various reports available in the system. For the demo, I'm going to go ahead and go through the annual report. So remember, our annual report are those individual tables that make up the year-end annual report. You have the ability to select them all in this drop-down right here. I'm going to leave it on requests. The agency is going to default to my acting agency. You can change this if you're trying to run a report for a lower-level agency. And then go ahead and just select a time period. So once I do that, I've got all my criteria, press Generate Report. You can see that little modal popped up letting me know that my report was in progress. As I stated previously, report criteria as well as the report itself are all on the same page, so at any point you can go back, adjust that criteria, and rerun pretty quickly. And then the report itself is displayed in the same manner as it was in FOIAonline Legacy. You have your table up at the top giving you that visual representation, as well as hover over text that lets you know the exact number here that we're talking about. And then down at the bottom, the table itself of all the data making up those numbers, broken down by the various sub-agencies. So this is true of all the reports. If you were to go do something such as a delinquency report, you're going to have that report criteria. Go ahead and generate the report, get that message, and then the report results are going to display right there on the page. And all of these reports, besides the annual report, because of the format, are also the ones that are filterable. So if you wanted to see everything made by a certain requester, for example, that's delinquent, you can filter down right there. So what we tried to do with reports, making them easier to run and viewable, we also obviously have tried to optimize our performance. So hopefully when you all get in here, you're able to run the reports you want to run without impacting the performance of other individuals, as well as being able to run those reports very quickly. The last thing that we're going to talk about is our administration tab. So if you are a system administrator or have access to the tab, we have made a few changes. The drop-down go directly to the option that you would like to go to. In this case, I'm going to choose Agency Administration. We're going to be taken to our Agency Details page. Remember, this is the page for your office that you're in. So I am an EPA user, so I'm taken to the EPA landing page for Agency Details. If I was a headquarters user, I'd be taken directly to headquarters. The top section still has all of your agency's general information, your mailing address, your notification email address, FOIA officer. You still have the terms and acronyms section. Remember, any terms and acronyms you add here will automatically be added to your year-end annual report PDF in the appropriate section, as well as the ability to add new terms and acronyms. and then the last thing being the sub-agencies. So all your sub-agencies for this agency are listed here, and then the last item on the page is the ability to add new sub-agencies. One of the things that we did change about the new sub-agency section is the ability to customize this a little more when creating it. So on the left-hand side, you still have agency's acronym, the name, and the FOIA officer, but on the right-hand side, we have a couple of fields so you can tag this agency the way it needs to be and create it correctly. The bottom two, external agency and private, are used very rarely, so you probably will never use those fields most likely. But the top one, direct submission, this is something that when creating new sub-agencies, you'll probably want to designate appropriately. So this gives you the ability to indicate which agencies will be available for public submission. So in that agency selection section on the new request page where they're getting those drop-downs for your agencies that you can submit to, this is how you designate that. So no meaning you don't want them available to submit to this agency, or yes meaning you do. You can set that right here up front when you're creating those sub-agencies. So scrolling back up to the top, we have various options available here. If you remember from Legacy FOIAonline, we only had a few options. What we tried to do was break up that configuration tab into multiple tabs so it was much easier to view and navigate. So I'm just going to go through each one of these one by one so we can see the data available. Under the configurable items dropdown, the first is the case file specifics. This is going to be those fields specific to the different case file types. So default retentions for your requests and appeals, as well as minimum number of reviewers for requests, appeals, and consultations, and then those additional fields for appeals if you'd like users or roles to get those notifications when appeals are created. So those items right here on the case file specifics tab. The next one is the configurable text tab. This is all the configurable text within the system. The first section being all that text for the year-end annual report, so all that information in sections 2 and 11. Sorry, working on my Roman numerals. So all those sections that are automatically added to that PDF available right here to you. One of the things I want to point out now that we're on this page and we can see it, all of the different bars within the system that are accepting the higher numbers of text, you can see these two little hash marks in the bottom. What those mean is that you have the ability to make this field as big as you need. So in this case, you see that this text is going below the line of the text box, so we have the scroll bar here. If you don't want to scroll, just grab that corner and go ahead and expand it out, and you can see all that information. So that's true of the description field on a new request and lots of other fields throughout the system. So if you see that little hash, you have the ability to make this box bigger or smaller depending on what you want, just so you can see all that information without having to scroll. So getting back to what we were talking about, our submission and instructional text, the first one being for requests, so that overall instructional text as well as that expedited processing and fee waiver text that are available on the new request page. You still have the ability to tailor that information to explain whatever you would like, what they should be submitting as far as request-wise, the information they need to provide, where they can get additional information, what constitutes expedited processing or fee waivers, all that information you're still able to input. One of the changes we did make is now every level of the agency can have their own text. So if you're accepting submissions at lower levels of the agency and EPA, for example, headquarters, Region 1, Region 2, all of those sub-agencies can have their own text. So text for headquarters can be different than text for Region 1, can be different from text for Region 2. So that's true of every level of the agency. And the last field here is the appeal submission instructional text. So the second change we made is an addition for every sub-agency being able to indicate their own text. You also have the ability to indicate different text for appeals than requests. So if you want to make sure that when users are submitting their appeals, they're submitting the correct information, the information you need, you now have the ability to indicate that in its own instructional text. As well as if your agency accepts expedited processing on appeals, you can have different expedited processing on the appeal versus the request. Scrolling back up, the last one I'm going to cover is the invoice information tab, and this is just all that information about your billing, your costs, and your invoice. So this is all still the same as it was previously, all those different rates on the left-hand side, all the costs on the right-hand side, those checkboxes to require users submit costs before closing out case files, and then your remittance information, which is printed out on your invoice. So all that information is still the same, just housed now on that invoice information tab. Going through the next couple of tabs, we have our dispositions. I'm going to skip letters for now, request types, statutes, and subtypes, which are all very similar. So going to one of those tabs, what you have is an existing table of the types that exist and the ability to create new ones. So in this case, we have our GLOMAR disposition, and it is active, and then we have the ability to create another disposition and make it active or not. Remember, saying that something is active means it's able to be used within the system. If I'm closing out a request, I select other in that disposition dropdown. It's going to give me the other disposition dropdown, and I'll be able to select GLOMAR. If a disposition is not active, then I won't see that in that dropdown. That is also true of the appeal disposition types down here at the bottom, as well as your statutes, your subtypes, your request types. So just going to another one, statutes, for example. You have all of the fields related to the statute and then whether or not you want to make it active. I'm also going to go over to request types just because we have another field that I'd like to point out. Remember, request types are the alternate request types if you're accepting additional types of requests such as Privacy Act, MDRs. Within the system, they're available. And then the additional flag is that display to public flag. So is this something that the public can enter? If it is yes, the public will be able to see it on the new request page. If it is no, then it's not going to display for them. They will not be able to create their own Privacy Act request. And the active flag still doing the same thing. So once again, dispositions, request types, statutes, and subtypes all very similar, giving you the ability to create and then maintain by making active, inactive, or public or not. The last tab we have here is the Custom Fields tab. This is brand new to FOIAonline. Previously, when your agency first came on board, we asked you if you had any custom field information that you wanted to provide to the user, and we did it all through the back end. Now you have an interface where you can create and maintain these custom fields yourself. So same layout as the other tabs. You have the existing custom fields in this top table here, and then the ability to create the new ones down below. Because this is new functionality, I'm going to go ahead and go through all these fields. The first one being the active flag, and the second one being the display to public flag, the same as they were with the other flags. Making it active gives you the ability to use it, and making it displayed to the public gives the public the ability to enter it. The required flag means, is it required for the user to enter or not? So if you say yes, they will have to provide the information for this field. And then the include in advanced search, as I was saying previously when we covered the advanced search, you can make these fields available for searching. So if this is something such as a case number field that's going to be something that's searched on often, go ahead and select include in advanced search, and then this field will be available for searching in that manner. The next field is the case file type. So is this being created for requests and referrals, or is this being created for appeals? You can designate either one of those separately. The input type is what type of field is this going to be? Is it going to be a free text field or a date field? And then also the encrypted free text field. So is this information needing to be encrypted because there's an additional layer of security. That is also available to you. And then the other two types are the drop-down and multi-select. If you select drop-down or multi-select, you're going to get an additional table down here where you need to provide the options that will be available in that drop-down. So, for example, let me type something in here, such as I know this isn't probably a field you'd actually use, but it's just an example. So is this urgent? Most likely your options for that table are then going to be yes or no. So down here in the options table, option name field, you put the first option that you want and press add, then put the next option you want and press add. Like the review table, if you put those options in the wrong order or you want to change them for any reason, just go ahead and drag and drop those, and it's going to change that order for you. And then the one field that I skipped over top of here is the help text field. So is there any text related to this field that you want to provide to the user in terms of instructions? And that's going to display as this little help icon next to the field with your text here as hover over. So pressing save is going to add that to the top table here. All of these will show you all of the options that you made. And then if you expand out that detail, you're going to be able to see all of the detail available for the certain types. So in this case, the drop-downs are going to have those different input options, and you can see that. And then the last thing is you have the ability to indicate what you want the display order of these fields to be. So how you want them to display on the new request page, in what order. And the same thing, you can drag and drop those fields in whatever order you want, and then press the save button. So the last thing I'm going to cover is user administration. So on the left-hand side, clicking that user administration action is going to take me to my list of agency users. Remember, these are all the active users in the system. Inactive accounts are housed in a different area. So you have your user list for all those users, and then you have your ability to create new users. So on the left-hand side, pressing that Create New User action, most of this information is all the same. Up at the top, you put the user's contact information, and then you select some different categories for them. Are they full-time employee? What's their title, their loaded rate, their role, things like that. The only thing that has changed is we've tried to streamline the adding of the acting and actual agencies. So in this case, you're going to have those type ahead fields, select the one you want, and then keep adding as necessary. If you have multiple, it's going to add them all to the table like this. And then you can go ahead and switch which one's your default very easily by moving these checkboxes. So just an easier layout, a prettier layout, able to see what's going on much easier. And then your existing users, the page for them, going back to user administration and then pressing an edit icon for any one of our users is still going to be exactly the same, where you're going to get that same view just with their information filled in, and you can update them as appropriate. And that is the end of our demo. I hope everyone saw most of the stuff they were wanting to see. I know we ran through it very quickly, but if there are any questions, we will open up the lines now to take those questions at this time.